from a quick warm soak to an overnight cold start. Then check the fuel in the clear tubing between the fuel filter and injection pump for air bubbles, which may indicate a leak internal to the cylinder head. If this is the case, first take note of the direction the bubbles travel, and then check the T-fitting between the injection pump drain and the fuel return for leaks. Repair as needed. You should also vacuum test the head at the fuel return T-fitting. If the cylinder head won't hold vacuum, replace the connector tube O-rings and then run the vacuum test again. If the cylinder head vacuum test still comes up bad, replace the fuel injector O-rings and sealing washers. If you noticed air bubbles in the fuel between the transfer pump and the fuel tank, inspect all fuel tank and supply line connections, as well as the fuel filter head and banjo bolts for leaks. Repair or replace components that you find are leaking. A quick test of the ECM is to turn the key on and check for three things: the wait to start lamp, the water in fuel lamp, and the transfer pump running for 2 seconds. If any of these items don't happen, that's a sign that there may be an issue with the Cummins ECM. Be sure to consult the service and diagnostic manuals for the details, and call the Star Center if the problem persists. If you verified ample fuel supply and the vehicle won't start at all, that's a perfect time to use tool number 8449, which will help you determine if the VP44 fuel injection pump is working properly. The tool connects to the fuel injection pump module and isolates the problem to either the pump or to the ECM and wiring harness. Connect the tool's battery clamps to the negative and positive terminals on the vehicle's battery. If the vehicle still won't start with the tool connected, you'll need to replace the fuel injection pump. If the vehicle starts, you know there's an issue with the ECM or its wiring harness. Use the idle button to change between low and high idle speeds. If the engine doesn't respond, further diagnosis is required. If the engine starts and changes idle appropriately with the tool connected, you know the fuel injection pump is okay. Press the shutoff button to stop the engine. When you're done, you may have to clear a fault code in the ECM due to the injection pump harness being disconnected. This tool will save you a lot of time in the long run, though, so be sure to use it the next time you're up against a no start. Before an engine cranking pressure test, remove the fuel injection pump relay in the power distribution center to prevent the engine from starting. Sometimes you get a customer complaining of low power because he thinks his diesel-powered pickup should accelerate like one with a big V8 gas engine. Well, those customers need educating. But when you have a legitimate low-power condition, you need to know where to look to find the answer. Let's go to Dan for a closer look.
Thanks, Mike. Technical Service Bulletin number 182199 has complete details for diagnosing low power and other poor performance symptoms. First, check to see that the throttle is opening fully. You can use the DRB3 sensor display to monitor the accelerator pedal position sensor as you press on the accelerator. Also, make sure that the floor mat or anything else isn't limiting the travel of the accelerator pedal. You should also run the transfer pump pressure tests described earlier when chasing down a low power symptom. Inspect the rollover valve on top of the fuel tank module for restrictions and make sure that the shipping plug wasn't left on. Diesel fuel tanks are vented to atmosphere, so there shouldn't be a plug or any other restriction at the vent. On the charge air cooler duct, check the clamps for proper positioning and torque. To ensure proper clamp torque, put a torque wrench on it. The torque setting for the duct clamps is 90 inch-pounds. Replace any clamps that are stretched or won't hold torque. Also, look for signs of heat stress on the clamps. A planned product improvement is the use of constant tension clamps on the turbo to charge air cooler connection. On a road test with a helper driving, check the boost pressure during wide open throttle acceleration. The boost pressure during a wide acceleration should be a minimum of 16 psi with up to 19 psi being ideal. If the boost pressure is lower than 16 psi, refer to TSB number 110898 for a service procedure on the turbocharger. You can also perform acceleration tests on model year 2000 and earlier vehicles to gauge performance. For vehicles with an automatic transmission, record the 0 to 60 time. For a manual transmission, record the time it takes to go from 40 to 60 miles per hour at wide open throttle. Use 4th gear for a 5-speed and 5th gear for a 6-speed. Compare the time you recorded to the acceleration charts in TSB number 182199 and follow the instructions. If the acceleration times are too slow, further diagnosis is needed. If they are within spec, let the customer know that his vehicle is just fine.
A neat thing about working on these turbo diesel engines is, well, you get to learn a lot about turbochargers. Here's some tips. Due to bushing clearances, some shaft movement is normal, but make sure the compressor wheel doesn't contact the housing. Some dirt tracking on the inlet to the turbocharger is normal and doesn't necessarily mean a failed turbo. Excessive dirt tracking on the turbo inlet can be a sign of other problems, though, including inlet sealing problems, the impeller rubbing on the compressor housing, or a dirty air filter element, regardless of what the filter minder says. Keep these things in mind the next time a turbo needs your attention. Did you hear that? That chirp you hear when turning off a diesel engine is pretty typical. You see, because of the high compression common to diesels, the engine stops moving immediately when shut down. The belt actually continues moving for an instant because of inertia from the accessory drive, which produces the sound. Pretty simple, huh? Now, the next time you get a question about belt chirp, you'll have the answer. Let's review what we've learned about diesel engine diagnosis, shall we? We saw some preliminary things to check for hard start concerns. Then we covered some different pressure tests, as well as how to detect air leaks in the fuel system. Next, we saw some items to inspect when dealing with low power complaints, including checking acceleration times. And we also got a few tips on turbochargers. Next up are some service issues you'll find useful.
One of the first components you get familiar with when wrenching on diesel engines is the fuel filter. Let me show you a few things to watch out for. First off, use a 1 1/8 inch socket on the hex nut to remove the housing cap. Using the square drive on the inside of the nut can cause the cap to crack. In fact, the square hole has been removed on caps currently being produced because too many were coming back cracked. And anytime you take the filter cap off, you should replace the filter element and the O-ring on the cap. Don't try to reuse the O-ring because it won't seal properly. While you have the filter housing open, it's a good idea to clean any sediment off the water and fuel sensor contacts inside the housing, which you can just wipe off with a cloth. Remember, the change interval for the fuel filter element is a maximum of every 15,000 miles, and it's even sooner for severe duty maintenance.
The next time you come across a diesel-powered vehicle that has a strong oil smell, check the crankcase breather vapor canister for excessive oil residue. The vapor canister, or breather bottle, should be emptied at every oil change interval. Typically, some oil will collect in the breather bottle, but it's not the cause of the oil odor entering the cab. Instead, check the seal between the cowl and the hood for proper location, especially on the ends. A seal that's not located the right way can cause the oil smell to enter the cab via the HVAC system. Reference TSB 090200 for the details. And to combat strong oil smells, always use Mopar oil that's approved for diesel engines. Diesel-powered truck owners can sometimes go a little overboard in their never-ending quest for more power. You might already be aware that some owners try to modify their engines with non-Mopar components. Tampering seems to be more common on diesel engines and includes the use of aftermarket power enhancement devices, using unauthorized ECM software, and installing HO parts on non-HO engines. Tampering can affect emission certifications, which can bring EPA regulatory fines and also can void the vehicle's powertrain warranty. Service technicians should discourage tampering by owners. And if you participate in any unauthorized modifications, watch out. Fines and other sanctions can result. A common sign of tampering is small cuts in the injection pump module wiring, where power boost devices have been spliced in. If you suspect a diesel engine has been tampered with, contact your zone office. After flash reprogramming the CM551 ECM, be sure to attach the authorized software update label to the ECM, not to the vehicle's PCM. Complete 2001 Ram truck service information will be delivered to your dealership this summer. Until then, you should consult the 2001 Service Manual Supplement for Ram Truck, publication number 81-370-0008A. It has updated information for the HO engine. A Powertrain Diagnostic Procedures Manual for 2001 diesel engines, number 81-699-00003, is also available. Both of these manuals should be used in addition to the Orange Model Year 2000 service information and will be superseded when the complete Model Year 2001 manuals are published. MDS2 coverage for the 2001 HO turbo diesel engine begins with CIS-CD version 2052. And if you'd like to take a training course to enhance your expertise with diesel engines, there are 2 courses available. The base engine course is number 0140308, and the fuel system course is 0841016. Thanks for watching this update on 24-valve Cummins turbo diesel engines. Coming up is an important look at installing child seat tether anchors. And next month's program will cover noise, vibration, and harshness. We'll see you then.